People tend to like those who seem like them. Mirroring is the subtle art of reflecting another person's tone, posture, or phrasing. When done naturally, it builds rapport and trust without a word. People feel understood because you match their rhythm. But once connection forms, you can shift the pace, a technique known as leading and pacing. Leading and pacing means aligning with someone's emotional state, then gently guiding them toward another. It's a dance of empathy and influence, often used in therapy, negotiation, and leadership. You match before you move. When timing's right, you can redirect energy without resistance. But to understand why people follow at all, we have to look at reward. The brain doesn't just want pleasure, it wants unpredictability. Variable rewards keep us hooked, whether it's social media notifications or romantic messages. When the payoff is uncertain, dopamine spikes harder. This explains habits, obsessions, even motivation. Once you understand the pattern behind the pleasure, you can begin to take back control. And control is what memory fights for too. The Zeigarnik Effect shows we remember unfinished tasks better than completed ones. Open loops hold attention because the brain craves closure. It's why cliffhangers work and to-do lists nag. You can use it to fuel focus or to make others keep thinking about you. But sometimes the best answers appear when you stop trying to find them. That's the incubation effect, the brain's quiet background processing. Stepping away lets subconscious connections form, which is why ideas strike in the shower or on walks. When attention softens, insight sharpens. The mind works while you rest, but its fuel isn't endless, and that's where willpower runs thin. Ego depletion describes how self-control weakens with use. Decision fatigue drains energy, making bad choices more likely. It's why diets collapse at night and tempers flare after long days. The key isn't to force more control, but to automate decisions. Plans protect energy. And that's exactly what implementation intentions are built for. Implementation intentions are mental scripts. If X happens, I'll do Y. This kind of pre-decision turns goals into habits. You're not relying on willpower, you're programming behavior. Studies show it doubles follow-through. When actions become predictable, stress drops. And as stress fades, self-consciousness does too, which brings us to the spotlight effect. You're not being watched as much as you think. The spotlight effect makes us overestimate how much others notice our mistakes or flaws. That awkward comment or stain you obsessed over, forgotten in minutes. Realizing this frees confidence, because while you're replaying your moment, everyone else is too busy replaying theirs. Still, we often look to others for what's normal, a tendency called social proof. Social proof makes us copy others in uncertain situations. Crowds become guides. If a restaurant's full, it must be good. If a post has likes, we assume it's true. It can keep us safe or lead us astray. Awareness lets you choose when to follow and when to lead. And sometimes the act of confidence itself becomes proof. Confidence signals competence, even when it's just composure. People trust calm tone, steady eyes, and grounded posture. Acting confident trains the feeling itself. The body teaches the mind. And sometimes that lesson starts with nothing more than a smile. Smiling can actually make you feel happier. Frowning deepens frustration. The facial feedback effect shows that emotion follows expression as much as the reverse. Your face doesn't just show mood, it shapes it. So if thinking calm doesn't work, try acting it. The body listens, even when the mind resists. The mind, however, can rewrite what the body feels. Cognitive reappraisal is the ability to change the meaning of what happens to us. Instead of seeing stress as threat, we see it as challenge. Instead of rejection, we see redirection. It's mental judo, using perspective instead of resistance. And once you master reframing, you start noticing how often confidence and competence get confused. The Dunning-Kruger effect reveals that people who know least often feel most certain, while true experts doubt themselves. It's a humbling reminder that ignorance breeds conviction, and knowledge breeds curiosity. Awareness of this bias protects us from arrogance and from shame. It teaches that overconfidence is easy, wisdom is earned. And sometimes, wisdom comes from the faith others place in us. The Pygmalion effect shows that expectation shapes performance. When someone believes in us, we rise to meet it. Teachers who expect brilliance often get it. Leaders who expect failure usually create it. The mind mirrors the faith it receives. But when that belief becomes our own, something deeper begins, the self-fulfilling prophecy. What we expect, we prepare for. Believe you'll fail, and you'll plan poorly. Believe you'll succeed, and you'll act accordingly. Belief shapes behavior. Behavior shapes results. The prophecy fulfills itself. Changing the story changes the outcome. And that story often depends on where we think control lives. Locus of control describes whether we see life as happening to us or through us. People with an internal locus believe effort drives outcomes. Those with an external one see fate or luck. Balance is key. Too internal, and we blame ourselves for everything. Too external, and we surrender power entirely. Responsibility and release must coexist. Both are distorted, though, by a classic judgment error. The fundamental attribution error makes us judge others by their character, but ourselves by circumstance. When someone is late, they're careless. When we're late, it was traffic. This mental shortcut fuels misunderstanding and resentment. Compassion begins when we pause before labeling. The same quickness of judgment explains another illusion, the halo effect. The halo effect makes one positive trait color everything else. Attractiveness makes us assume intelligence. Status makes us assume virtue. Advertisers, influencers, even leaders rely on it. The opposite, the horn effect, does the same with flaws. Seeing clearly means separating glow from goodness. First impressions matter, but they're not the full picture. Still, they carry more weight than they should. The primacy effect means early information shapes all that follows. The first sentence of a story, the opening line of a date, the first handshake. These moments anchor perception. Once the anchor sets, every new detail filters through it. And if the first impression matters, so does the last. The recency effect shows that the final moments of an interaction linger longest. We judge experiences not by their middle, but by how they end. That's why smart communicators close strong and kind people part gently. Endings rewrite memory. The same principle explains why we remember highlights, not averages. The peak end rule says people judge an experience by its most intense moment and how it ends, not its duration. A single burst of joy or pain outweighs hours of neutrality. That's why one magical night defines a holiday, or one sharp argument scars a year. It's not the timeline that counts, but the emotion. And emotion often attaches most strongly to what we've built ourselves. The IKEA effect shows we value what we create. Build a piece of furniture, write a paragraph, plant a garden, and suddenly it matters more. Effort breeds attachment. We care about what costs us energy. Ownership strengthens meaning, which explains why we cling so tightly once we have it. The endowment effect makes us overvalue what's ours. Once we own something, selling it feels like loss. A mug worth £1 becomes priceless when it's your mug. This bias isn't greed, it's identity protection. We see possessions as extensions of self. That's why losing them hurts more than gaining replacements soothes us. It ties directly into another truth. That loss looms larger than gain. Loss aversion means the pain of losing £100 is stronger than the joy of winning £100. We are wired to protect more than to pursue. This fear of loss shapes investing, relationships, even creativity. We avoid risk to avoid regret. But safety isn't the same as stability. And sometimes clinging creates a deeper trap. The sunk cost fallacy is our tendency to keep investing in something that's failing simply because we've already invested. We stay in bad jobs, relationships, or projects thinking we've come too far to quit. In truth, the cost is already gone. Quitting isn't waste, it's wisdom. Every release creates room for renewal, and renewal often starts with rest. Decision fatigue shows that self-control drains over time. Too many choices exhaust the mind. By evening, willpower wanes, mistakes rise. Simplify decisions, automate routines, save energy for what matters. This restoration of control sets the stage for what psychologists call flow. Flow is the state of total absorption when challenge meets skill. Time disappears, effort feels effortless, and joy becomes concentration. Artists, athletes, and gamers chase it. Flow is proof that the best work feels like play. But to reach it, the mind needs safety, the sense that effort won't be punished. Psychological safety is the quiet confidence that you can speak, or experiment without humiliation. Teams that have it outperform those that don't. Safety breeds creativity because fear kills curiosity, and curiosity, when free, becomes one of the most powerful motivators of all. Intrinsic motivation is the drive that comes from within, the love of the process, not the reward. When you do something for its own sake, energy renews itself. Extrinsic motivation fades. Intrinsic deepens. The key is alignment, finding meaning in motion. But even pure motives falter under bias. Confirmation bias makes us seek evidence that supports what we already believe. It's mental comfort food. We scroll for agreement, not truth. Recognizing this bias demands humility, the willingness to be wrong. Without it, we grow blind and defensive. And once beliefs calcify, they distort memory itself. The misinformation effect shows that memory is malleable. Suggest a detail and people will remember it as real. Eyewitnesses change stories. Nostalgia rewrites youth. Memory isn't a recording, it's a reconstruction. Knowing this encourages compassion. Most people aren't lying, they're just remembering differently. That distinction is vital in conflict, where emotions mix with facts. Emotional contagion explains how moods spread. Spend time with angry people, and you'll feel agitated. Sit beside calm ones, and your pulse slows. We absorb emotion like weather. The power lies in choosing the climates we live in. And sometimes the best way to shift a mood is through gratitude. Gratitude shifts focus from absence to abundance. It trains the brain to notice sufficiency over scarcity. Regular gratitude practice rewires the mind for optimism and resilience. It doesn't erase pain, but it reduces its dominance. Positivity becomes default, not denial. Yet even gratitude can fade under chronic stress, the weight of learned helplessness. Learned helplessness occurs when repeated failure convinces us nothing we do matters. It leads to apathy and depression. The cure is evidence of influence, small wins that prove action counts. Each success rewires belief, and those new beliefs become habits of hope. Hope, however, isn't automatic. It grows through reinforcement. Operant conditioning explains how behavior strengthens or weakens through consequence. Praise reinforces effort. Neglect erases it. Punishment discourages, but rarely teaches. We shape one another with feedback far more than we realize. Reward consistency, and you'll see change. Withholding it breeds frustration, the perfect setup for resentment and blame. The attribution trap reappears when we assume intent behind every slight. Most people aren't out to hurt us. They're trapped in their own stories. Seeing this reduces defensiveness and restores empathy. Empathy, at its heart, is imagination, the ability to picture another mind. Theory of mind allows us to predict others' thoughts and feelings. It underpins storytelling, cooperation, and compassion. Without it, relationships fracture. With it, connection deepens. It's the root of civilization and every friendship you've ever trusted. Yet even empathy can falter when fear takes over. Fear triggers the amygdala hijack, the brain's emergency override. Logic shuts down, instincts rule. It's useful in danger, destructive in conversation. Recognizing the hijack helps us pause before reacting. The breath becomes the bridge between impulse and intention. Once calm returns, reason reopens, and with it, choice. Choice, after all, is what makes us human. Choice, however, isn't always free. Often it's guided by unseen nudges, small cues that steer behavior without our awareness. Choice architecture is the design of those invisible influences. From the placement of fruit at eye level to default options in software, environments guide decisions more than intentions do. Change the setting, and you change the story. But sometimes the story we tell ourselves is even more powerful. Self-perception theory shows that we infer our attitudes from our actions. We don't smile because we're happy. We feel happy because we smiled. The mind watches the body and draws conclusions. It's how habits become identity. Behavior writes belief. And belief, in turn, decides what we notice next. Selective attention filters the flood of sensory data, letting only what feels relevant pass through. That's why when you buy a red car, you suddenly see red cars everywhere. Focus creates frequency. The danger is tunnel vision. The gift is clarity. Where attention goes, life follows. And sometimes the attention of others shapes us even more than our own. Social comparison theory explains that we define ourselves by measuring against others. Upward comparisons inspire ambition, but breed envy. Downward ones comfort us, but limit growth. The trick is to compare compassionately, to measure progress against your past self, not someone else's highlight reel. Envy fades when direction replaces competition. Still, competition can be useful if channeled wisely. The goal gradient effect shows motivation spikes as we approach a target. The closer we are to finishing, the faster we move. This is why loyalty cards near completion get used more often, and why runners sprint the final stretch. Progress feels exponential near the end. To keep momentum, break long journeys into visible wins. Just don't let momentum become obsession. Obsessive passion consumes, harmonious passion sustains. The dualistic model of passion reminds us that what drives us can also drain us. When the pursuit becomes identity, balance breaks. Passion should expand life, not narrow it. That's where self-compassion steps in, the counterweight to endless striving. Self-compassion means treating yourself with the kindness you'd offer a friend. It's not indulgence, but emotional realism. Research shows it improves resilience, motivation, and well-being. Failure hurts less when you stop calling yourself the failure. The voice in your head becomes a coach, not a critic. And when the inner critic softens, empathy for others grows. The empathy gap explains how hard it is to imagine emotions we're not feeling. When calm, we underestimate anger. When full, we forget hunger. Bridging the gap requires imagination, to recall what distress feels like while safe, or restraint feels like when tempted. Perspective builds patience, and patience keeps relationships alive. In relationships, the reciprocity norm governs kindness. Do something generous, and others feel compelled to return it. It maintains balance in societies and friendships alike. Marketers exploit it with free gifts, but true reciprocity comes from sincerity, not strategy. Give without keeping score. Generosity without ledger builds real trust, and trust strengthens persuasion. The principle of consistency explains why once people commit publicly, they're more likely to follow through. Small yeses lead to bigger ones. Salespeople know it, but so do leaders. Integrity uses the same law. Actions follow words. We crave alignment between who we say we are and what we do. Yet sometimes it's uncertainty that keeps us hooked. Intermittent reinforcement, the psychology behind slot machines and social media, rewards unpredictably. The brain releases more dopamine when rewards are uncertain. It's why variable praise motivates better than constant approval. The mind loves mystery, but mystery also feeds anxiety. So managing uncertainty becomes the heart of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is awareness of feelings, yours and others, and the ability to guide them. It's self-regulation rather than suppression, empathy without absorption. High emotional intelligence predicts better leadership and calmer homes. It's the manual we never got for being human. Yet even awareness can't stop bias. It only reveals it. Anchoring bias makes the first piece of information set the reference point for all others. A high opening price makes the next seem cheap. A low one makes it dear. It colors negotiations, salaries, and judgments. To counter it, pause before deciding. A single anchor doesn't have to sink the ship. But sometimes it's not numbers that anchor us, it's words. Framing effect shows that how something's said changes how it's perceived. 90% fat-free sounds better than 10% fat. The facts stay the same. The feeling doesn't. Master communicators use framing to shape emotion, not lie. Reframing your own thoughts works the same way. Language shifts perspective, and perspective shifts behavior. Behavior spreads through networks like ripples. Social contagion means moods, habits. Even obesity can pass from person to person. You become a mirror of the 5 people you see most. Proximity becomes prophecy. Choose your circles wisely. They sculpt your subconscious. Influence, though, isn't always mutual. Sometimes it's strategic. The foot in the door technique begins with a small request that makes a larger one easier later. Say yes once, and you're more likely to stay consistent. Activists, fundraisers, and negotiators all use it. It's persuasion through progression. Just as powerful, but more dangerous, is its opposite, the door in the face. The door in the face approach starts with an extreme request, expecting rejection, then follows with a smaller one that seems reasonable by comparison. The contrast makes the second ask feel like compromise. It's compliance disguised as concession. Understanding it protects you from manipulation and teaches the subtle art of framing choice. And choice is never neutral when scarcity enters the picture. Scarcity effect makes limited things feel more valuable. Only 3 left, or offer ends tonight, hijacks the brain's survival wiring. We equate rare with worthy. The fear of missing out is just scarcity in disguise. Real freedom begins when abundance replaces urgency, but urgency, used well, can save lives. Temporal discounting explains why we value immediate rewards more than future ones. It's why diets break and savings shrink. The present feels heavier than tomorrow. Overcoming it means making the future vivid. Imagine next month's peace outweighing today's craving. Patience is imagination stretched through time, and time itself warps memory. The availability heuristic makes us judge likelihood by what comes easily to mind. Hear about plane crashes and you fear flying despite statistics. Media magnifies exceptions until they seem common. Awareness restores proportion. Probability is quieter than panic. This brings us to optimism bias, the mind's defense against despair. Optimism bias makes us believe things will turn out better than they statistically should. It fuels hope and risk-taking, but blinds us to danger. Balanced optimism isn't denial, it's courage with calculation. Believe the best, prepare for the rest. That attitude shapes resilience, the ability to bend without breaking. Resilience grows not from toughness but recovery. It's emotional elasticity, the art of returning to center after shock. Every setback rehearses strength. You rebuild faster each time. What breaks you once educates you twice. And resilience, when paired with meaning, becomes post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth is the positive transformation that sometimes follows crisis. People emerge with deeper purpose, stronger relationships, and clearer priorities. It doesn't romanticize suffering. It recognizes regeneration. Pain carves space for wisdom. Healing isn't returning to who you were. It's becoming who you couldn't have been without the storm. And that journey begins with awareness. Metacognition is thinking about thinking, the mind stepping back to watch itself. It's how we notice patterns before they own us. The watcher behind the thoughts is the birthplace of change. Once you can observe the mind, you're no longer trapped in it. Awareness creates choice, and choice creates freedom. And freedom, finally, is what every psychological code is really about. Not escaping your mind, but mastering it with understanding rather than force. Freedom, though, can be paralyzing. Too many options don't always mean empowerment. They can mean exhaustion. The paradox of choice shows that abundance often leads to anxiety and regret. When everything's possible, satisfaction drops because we imagine the alternatives we didn't take. Simplifying decisions restores contentment. Freedom feels lighter when it's curated, not endless. And the quality of those choices depends on how we predict their outcomes. Effective forecasting is our attempt to predict how future events will make us feel, and we're terrible at it. We overestimate how long happiness or sadness will last. Winning the lottery and losing a job both fade quicker than imagined. The brain adapts, returning to baseline. Knowing this helps us chase meaning, not mood. Because when mood becomes our compass, we risk illusion. The hedonic treadmill explains why happiness always resets. New possessions, promotions, relationships, they thrill, then normalize. Pleasure adapts. It's why humans constantly seek more, yet rarely feel complete. The secret isn't chasing novelty, but deepening appreciation. Gratitude slows the treadmill so contentment can catch up, and that contentment flourishes when identity is stable. Self-concept clarity is knowing who you are and what you stand for. When self-concept is fuzzy, emotions swing wildly with circumstance. Clarity anchors us against comparison and manipulation. People with strong identity handle stress better and recover faster from rejection. But identity isn't fixed. It's rewritten through self-narrative. Self-narrative theory suggests that we become the stories we tell about ourselves, change the narrative, and behavior follows. Victim or survivor, failure or learner, labels sculpt reality. This is why therapy, journaling, and storytelling heal. The act of reframing turns chaos into coherence. Yet coherence can collapse when the story conflicts with reality. Cognitive dissonance is the discomfort of holding conflicting beliefs or actions. It pushes us to justify or change behavior to reduce tension. Smokers downplay health risks. Procrastinators call delay preparation. The key is noticing the discomfort before rationalization begins. That pause is where honesty grows, and honesty is the seed of authenticity. Authenticity isn't about oversharing. It's alignment between inner values and outer actions. When you stop performing, energy returns. Authentic people attract trust because consistency is magnetic. They say what they mean and mean it gently. But gentleness doesn't mean weakness. It's emotional precision, often powered by boundaries. Boundaries define where you end and others begin. They're acts of self-respect, not selfishness. Clear boundaries protect energy, prevent resentment, and clarify expectations. People may resist them, but the peace that follows proves their worth. Boundaries transform relationships from draining to mutual, and mutuality is built through trust, the invisible currency of connection. Trust develops through reliability, small promises kept over time. It's fragile and slow-growing, easily shattered by deceit. Yet, once restored, it's stronger for the cracks, like gold in kintsugi pottery. Trust isn't blind, it's brave. To extend it is to risk, and risk is the pulse of all growth. Risk perception isn't objective, it's emotional. We fear plane crashes but ignore unhealthy habits because one feels dramatic, the other dull. The availability heuristic distorts danger through attention. Knowing this helps recalibrate fear. Logic alone can't silence anxiety, but awareness can turn fear into strategy. Strategy, after all, is emotion managed by reason. The dual process theory of thinking describes two systems: fast and intuitive versus slow and deliberate. We use intuition for speed, logic for accuracy. The trick is knowing when to switch. Most errors happen when we rely on the wrong system for the task. Balance intuition with analysis and decisions improve, yet even analysis can become a trap if you never act. Analysis paralysis freezes progress. Overthinking feels productive, but delays results. Perfectionism hides beneath the mask of preparation. Movement creates clarity faster than reflection alone. The solution is iteration, learning by doing. Progress loves motion, not mastery, and that motion is driven by something older than thought itself. Habit loops form when cue, routine, and reward reinforce each other. Brush teeth, check phone, scroll, repeat. To change a habit, keep the cue and reward, but swap the routine. Habits are the autopilot of life, dangerous if unconscious, powerful when designed. The strongest habits start small and grow invisible. That's how identity shifts without struggle. Identity-based habits are built on I am statements. I'm a runner lasts longer than I'll try to run. The brain seeks consistency with self-image. Align behavior with identity, and discipline becomes natural. But even the strongest identities falter under social pressure. The Ash conformity experiments showed that people will deny reality to fit in with a group. Agreement feels safer than accuracy. This herd instinct once ensured survival, now it fuels echo chambers. Courage is choosing truth over comfort. Every independent thought is an act of quiet rebellion, and rebellion fuels creativity. Divergent thinking, the engine of creativity, generates multiple solutions instead of one. It thrives in play, curiosity, and permission to fail. Children are naturals at it. Adults must unlearn judgment. To think differently. First, allow difference. Creativity isn't talent, it's tolerance for the unconventional. And unconventional thinking often appears irrational until it works. Lateral thinking uses indirect approaches to solve problems. It's the mind's detour, bypassing logic to reach insight, asking, what if the opposite were true? Or, how would a child see this? Triggers new pathways. Genius hides in reframing, not complexity. And those flashes of insight are strongest when you're relaxed, not straining. The relaxation response is the body's antidote to stress. Slow breathing, relaxed muscles, calm heart. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, restoring equilibrium. Practiced regularly, it reduces anxiety, lowers blood pressure, and sharpens clarity. Calm isn't passive, it's preparation. From stillness, strength grows. Strength, however, often arrives disguised as struggle. Adversarial growth shows that challenge refines character. Facing hardship builds psychological muscle, forcing adaptability. Resilience isn't about avoiding pain, but integrating it. Growth requires friction, and friction requires perspective. And perspective is what gratitude renews each time we forget. Anticipatory regret, the fear of future regret, can paralyze decision-making. We avoid choices to dodge imagined remorse. Yet indecision is a decision, and regret thrives in inaction. It's easier to fix a mistake than to fix what never began. Freedom from regret comes from choosing, learning, and moving. And the movement of choice builds momentum for hope. Hope theory describes hope as more than optimism. It's a combination of goals, pathways, and agency, the belief that we can find routes to what we want. Hope fuels perseverance when logic falters. It's a cognitive process, not just an emotion. People without hope stop planning. People with it create miracles. But hope without truth can collapse under pressure. Realistic optimism marries positivity with pragmatism. It acknowledges risks but focuses on possibility. This mindset correlates with better health, persistence, and creativity. It's the opposite of toxic positivity, which denies pain. Real optimism looks at storms and packs an umbrella. That steady awareness becomes mindfulness, presence without judgment. Mindfulness is paying attention on purpose, in the present, without criticism. It anchors the wandering mind, turning chaos into clarity. Practice daily, it strengthens concentration, emotional regulation, and compassion. Mindfulness doesn't erase thoughts. It changes our relationship to them. The storm still happens, but you're no longer the wind. And when the storm quiets, what's left is focus. Not the tight grip of control, but the steady gaze of awareness. Focus deepens through attention, but attention drifts where emotion points it. Attentional bias explains why anxious minds spot danger and optimistic ones see opportunity. The lens determines the landscape. By adjusting focus, we don't change the world, only how it looks, which changes everything. Perception, after all, is the first step of reality construction. Perceptual set theory shows that what we expect shapes what we perceive. See faces in clouds, meaning in randomness. The mind loves patterns. Expectations act like filters, letting some data through and ignoring the rest. Belief becomes vision. To see clearly, sometimes you must expect nothing at all. Clarity begins where assumption ends. And yet, even when we see clearly, memory edits what we saw. The hindsight bias makes outcomes seem obvious after the fact. I knew it all along, is the brain's attempt to make chaos feel logical. It reduces uncertainty but distorts truth. Wisdom is admitting surprise without shame. Humility guards accuracy better than intellect. Intellect, however, isn't everything. Emotional granularity, the ability to name feelings precisely, predicts resilience better than IQ. There's power in knowing the difference between irritation and anger, disappointment and grief. Naming creates space. Space allows choice. The words we use for emotion become handles for self-control. Precision in language is precision in living. Language itself changes thought. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis suggests that the structure of a language influences its speaker's worldview. Some languages have no future tense, and their speakers save more money. Words frame possibility, expand vocabulary, expand perception. But meaning also hides in silence, the pauses between words. In communication, silence is punctuation for emotion. It amplifies sincerity, invites reflection, and signals respect. Those who can stay silent in discomfort often lead with quiet authority. Stillness is persuasive. It gives others room to think. And when people feel heard, influence multiplies. The liking principle explains that we're more easily persuaded by people we like. Similarity, compliments, and cooperation build liking quickly. Salespeople know it, leaders live by it. But liking without integrity breeds manipulation. True influence grows from authenticity, not charm. And authentic influence requires timing, knowing when to speak, when to wait. The scarcity of attention makes timing everything. The serial position effect shows we remember beginnings and endings best. So smart communicators place key ideas there. This is why speeches open bold and close strong. In the middle, minds wander. To be remembered, design your message for memory, not just meaning. Meaning itself expands when connected to purpose. Purpose provides psychological endurance, the why that carries us through how. Viktor Frankl called it the will to meaning, stronger than pleasure or power. People can endure almost any how when their why is alive. Purpose stabilizes the soul through chaos, but even purpose falters without rest. Restoration theory explains that sleep and downtime repair the mind's executive functions. Creativity rises after rest because the brain quietly sorts and stores while we dream. Rest isn't the absence of effort, it's its renewal. Protecting sleep is protecting strategy. Fatigue breeds foolishness faster than ignorance. And foolishness, unchecked, feeds impulsivity. Delay discounting shows how the brain overvalues immediate gratification. We want now more than later. The antidote is perspective, remembering that long-term peace outlasts short-term pleasure. Discipline isn't denial, it's devotion to future self. Each postponed impulse funds tomorrow's calm. Calm breeds clarity, and clarity attracts confidence. Self-efficacy, the belief in one's ability to succeed, predicts performance better than skill alone. Confidence isn't arrogance, it's memory of past competence. Each success deposits evidence in the bank of self-trust. Withdraw from it in doubt, and you move again. Confidence compounds, like interest, through repetition and reflection. But even strong minds wobble when the body is ignored. Embodied cognition reveals that thinking isn't confined to the brain. Posture, movement, and gesture shape thought. Walking boosts creativity. Slouching dampens mood. Change your stance, change your state. The body teaches the mind its own language of confidence and calm. That's why action often precedes understanding. Understanding grows through feedback. and feedback requires listening. Active listening means hearing with curiosity, not waiting to reply. It turns conversation into collaboration. When people feel truly heard, defensiveness dissolves. Listening is an underrated superpower. It repairs more than it advises. And repair matters, because conflict is inevitable. Conflict resolution isn't about winning, it's about restoring connection. Focus on needs, not narratives. Ask what outcome would feel fair, not who's right. Compromise keeps peace, but empathy keeps respect. When both sides feel seen, the problem shrinks. And every solved conflict strengthens emotional maturity, the calm after confrontation. Emotional maturity is measured not by how we feel, but how we respond to feeling. It's patience over reaction, boundaries over blame. Maturity doesn't kill emotion, it carries it wisely. It's the grace to pause before replying, the strength to choose kindness without surrender. True strength is quiet competence under pressure. Pressure reveals character, and the Yerkes-Dodson law explains why. Performance rises with stress up to a point, then drops sharply. Too little arousal breeds boredom. Too much breeds panic. The sweet spot, focused alertness, is where mastery lives. Learn your curve, and you control your performance. Learn others, and you become a leader. Leadership, at its core, is emotional contagion with direction. Teams mirror their leaders' state. Calm leaders spread composure. Anxious ones transmit chaos. Energy is contagious, whether you intend it or not. Leading well means regulating self before influencing others. From inner order comes outer impact, and impact, when shared, becomes culture. Organizational culture is the collective personality of a group. It grows from repeated behavior, not mission statements. What leaders tolerate teaches more than what they preach. Healthy cultures reward curiosity, candor, and care. They turn workplaces into ecosystems for growth. Culture scales humanity. And when culture collapses, ethics steps in to rebuild. Ethical decision-making is reasoning with conscience. It weighs intent, consequence, and fairness. Ethics are the invisible architecture of trust, hard to build, easy to erode. When values guide choices, reputation sustains itself. The right thing is often the harder thing, but integrity ages well. And from integrity springs legacy. Legacy bias makes us want to be remembered well, to leave something that outlasts us. This desire shapes art, parenting, teaching, even kindness. Awareness of legacy sharpens priorities. What will matter when you're gone becomes what matters now. Legacy thinking reframes urgency into purpose. And purpose, ultimately, is what brings peace. Peace psychology explores conditions that allow individuals and societies to thrive without violence. It emphasizes empathy, justice, and cooperation over dominance. Inner peace and outer peace mirror each other. One cannot survive without the other. When the mind is at peace, wisdom surfaces. And wisdom, finally, is the completion of understanding. Wisdom integration means living the lessons we've learned instead of merely recalling them. It's intelligence tested by experience, compassion refined by reality. Wisdom doesn't need certainty, it needs presence. It forgives what it cannot fix and learns from what it endures. That's the final code, to understand enough to stay curious, and to stay curious enough to keep learning. Because the ultimate cheat code isn't knowing everything. It's remembering that every thought, every feeling, every failure is feedback, and you can start again, wiser, at any moment.